If you're looking for homeschool sanity, welcome. I'm Dr. Melanie Wilson, Christian psychologist turned homeschool mom and curriculum author. But I was once so disorganized, I thought I had to quit homeschooling and stop having kids. Now, by the grace of God, I have 6 homeschool graduates. Whether we're discussing parenting, productivity, or practical tips, I pray that this episode is just what you need for happy, healthy homeschooling. Hey homeschoolers, when I began homeschooling, I thought I would have to teach reading on the couch. That's a lot more comfortable for kids than learning to read at desks, but I didn't know that I could do better, especially for my boys. Before I introduce my guest, I want to share this message from our sponsor, Now Programs.
We first noticed Asher was having difficulties with learning when he was about 5. We ended up having him privately tested, and of course it came back that he was dyslexic. It was super overwhelming. Like there was just list and list of all these programs. So we started talking to people and felt like everybody was just saying something different. I hired the lady that had tested him. She tutored him for a year, one-on-one, 4 days a week. She came to me and was like, it's not working. Thankfully, she had met Dr. Conway. She just highly suggested the Morris Center. From there, my husband and I got in touch with the Morris Center, and Dr. Conway spoke with us over the phone, and you could just really tell his expertise in dyslexia.
Enroll your child or teenager at themorriscenter.com, or for virtual sessions, visit nowprograms.com.
Stefanie Hohl is an experienced educator specializing in early literacy and movement-based learning. She is passionate about finding innovative ways to save parents' sanity while still engaging young learners. She developed a fun and effective program called ABC See, Hear, Do. This program is designed to help children develop essential reading skills through a multi-sensory approach that incorporates visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning styles. I really enjoyed hearing her ideas, and I know you will too. Stefanie, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. I am really looking forward to talking more about how we can teach reading in a more active way. I had 5 boys, most of whom were quite active, and that information would have been really useful to me. But before we dive into the topic, I would love to have you tell us more about you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on the show. And that's funny, you have 5 boys. I have 1 girl and 4 boys.
Okay.
So pretty similar.
Yes.
So I have 2 kids in college now, and then 3 at home. They're 16, 14, and 11. I've always been really interested in education and teaching. And I did homeschool. We've done homeschool, we've done cyber school, we've done traditional, we've done all the types of schooling. And I got really interested in literacy and teaching reading when I taught my first 4 kids to read, and then I had my youngest, and he was a totally different ballgame. And I knew the methods I had used for my older kids were not going to work with him. And this was when I was in grad school for a Master's of Education in Curriculum and Instruction. And so I started research on methods of teaching children to read. And I knew I wanted something that used movement because my son was so active, he wouldn't sit still. Research shows that's the best way kids learn. But I couldn't really find something that was parent friendly that you could just pick up and use. And I was also wanting to become a children's book author at the time. So kind of all my worlds collided, and I developed my own program, and I used it with my youngest, and it worked like magic. And I was like, I have to share this with other parents. So that's kind of how my journey here started. And so now I run this company, and it's been a wonderful journey.
Well, that's fantastic. As someone who also started a business to fill a need that I had that can hopefully benefit other parents, I am excited to talk with you more about this topic. So, why can teaching children to read be difficult? It isn't always, right? I mean, you're referencing that you taught your first kids to read probably with a more traditional approach. That's what I did. I had a child who wasn't picking up phonics the way my other three boys had. So, why can it be a struggle at times?
Yeah, teaching kids to read is actually can be really difficult. And like you're saying, for some kids, they pick it up easily. But I think we have this expectation that kids learning to read should be something that comes naturally, like learning to speak. But it's really not. It's a very complex process that involves a lot of steps. And so children can have difficulty on any of those steps, whether it's with phonics or decoding or comprehension or whatever. And it can be really frustrating as a parent when each child learns so differently, and the way we teach one of our kids to read might work great, and then we try it with the next one and it's like a total disaster. And so it can be really hard when you don't know what to do because you don't know what else to try, or you don't know what's going to work for that specific child. Because obviously learning to read is so important, especially when you homeschool. Your child needs to be able to read so that they can then go learn whatever they want to learn. And so I feel like there's also kind of this added pressure, which makes parents anxious and nervous, like, oh, they're not reading, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And for some kids, it just really is a hard process. And the traditional methods of teaching reading really don't work great for a lot of kids out there.
Mm, that is for sure. And as you're talking about the anxiety, I definitely felt that, even though I had successfully taught three children to read, which I was nervous about. I had never taught anyone to read. I had not even been educated about how to do that. I was just doing it as a homeschooling mom. And so I was so relieved when my boys were reading. It's like, yeah, I have it. And then I was just coasting. And then when boy number 4 came along and I would sound out the sounds with him, ah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what does that say? No idea. And I just thought, what in the world? And he was definitely a more active child. And I was very nervous, and I was reaching out to multiple people for help in
Mm-hmm.
teaching him to read. And I will say, at the time, I did not have anyone say that movement could help him learn to read. So, why does that work?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because learning to read, like I said, is so complex and it uses many different parts of the brain that all have to work together to do this one thing. Because you have to see the letter, you have to understand it's a symbol for a sound, and then you have to blend those sounds together. So it's this complex process, and we're used to just using like visual and auditory when we're teaching reading. See the letters, say the sounds, hear the sounds. But research shows that when you add movement into learning, it actually increases learning by 90%, which is huge. Like, this is huge. Because what it does is it accesses other parts of the brain and it creates more neural pathways. And so it just makes learning the material and retaining the material much easier because the more parts of your brain you access, the easier it is. So simply by adding in that kinesthetic component really makes it click for some kids that need that.
Right. So basically what you're describing is a multi-sensory approach.
Yes, absolutely. The more senses you can use, the better it is, and the easier it will be for the child to learn and remember.
Right. And I would think that, if you don't know how your child is going to respond to a traditional approach to learning to read, that you could just go ahead and use this multi-sensory approach from the get-go,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of kids that do fine with just the visual and auditory, but every child can benefit from adding in movement, and it just will make it easier and more fun for them.
Okay, well, I'm all about that. Always about
Yes.
making it fun because I know from research I've done that when our brain has a release of dopamine, I call that like the save button in our brain, that
Okay.
we are much more likely to remember things that are rewarding, that are fun, that make us laugh, that kind of thing. So, okay, so
That's I actually
yeah,
really love that because one of the
okay,
other things that I really emphasize is breaking learning to read into really, really small, simple chunks so that it builds confidence. Because exactly what you're saying, when the kid feels confident and like, oh, I know how to do that, I can do that, they want to keep doing it again. Because as soon as they
absolutely
get frustrated, it's like, you're done. You can't, you're
right.
not going to learn anything else.
So true. So, so true. And when kids feel that they are good at something, it is rewarding. I mean, we all know
Hmm.
that. Whenever we discover, hey, I'm actually good at this, it's rewarding and we want to do it more. So
Absolutely.
if you can break that process of learning to read down into manageable, achievable
Hmm.
chunks, as you're describing, then you're more likely to have a child who feels like they can do it and it's going to be
Yes,
rewarding. They'll want to spend more time with it.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. So, right now, a parent who is frustrated with trying to teach their child to read is listening to us. So, what should they do first?
So, the first thing I always say with the parent that's frustrated is to just stop whatever they're doing, to take a step back, breathe, realize that first, realize it's going to be okay. Your child will learn to read. It might not be by tomorrow or next month, but they will learn to read. Um, and then to really kind of take a step back and reevaluate, think about their child, how their child learns, what they're doing that their child is not responding to, um, and to try something new, which I know can be frustrating as a parent if you spend a lot of money on a curriculum or you've planned to do something and you don't want to change your plans. But charging forward, so this is actually what happened with my daughter, who was the oldest, who I taught to read first. She actually was hard to teach to read, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was young and had no, I mean, I just plowed ahead. And she ended up learning to read, but she hated reading. Like,
Mm.
and that's the total opposite of what you want. I was able to fix that with her later by finally realizing, okay, I have to stop what I'm doing and change. But really, it's really try to think about what your child needs, what's the best way for them to learn, and how you can make the learning to read process simpler and more fun. Um, and make it so the child wants to do it. If
Hmm.
they're resisting, if they're saying, no, I don't want to do that, no, I hate that, then you need to try something else.
Hmm. Very, very good advice. I love that. And I mean, it's kind of obvious when you step away from it, but I think as parents who are anxious,
Hmm.
and it's not without reason, right? I mean,
Right.
as you said, it's very important that our kids learn to read, and we know that. And it can also be this marker for, are we going to be successful as homeschoolers? So if,
Yes.
if you're just starting off and you can't teach your child to read or you're struggling to, then it's no wonder that you're feeling anxious, and it's no wonder that you would just try harder doing the
Right.
same thing.
Well, and a
So
lot of times I think it's really hard to take that step back because you think, oh, maybe it's me, or maybe we just need to try one more day, or maybe I need to discipline more, whatever, all those things that we think and feel. But with the teaching to read process, like you really don't want your kid to hate it. So I really recommend stopping what you're doing and rethinking.
absolutely. And it's the same philosophy that I had in creating a grammar and English
Mm,
curriculum. It's the same process that
right,
kids can go through where it's like, I'm not good at this. Therefore I hate it.
right.
And I just shut down, even when the brain development is there in terms of grammar, because it's an abstract reasoning skill
Mm-hmm.
that they don't even want to hear it because
Right.
they don't think that they can learn it. So I love what you're saying. We're on the same page completely. So you've convinced, hopefully, the parent who has a child who is struggling with the current way of teaching reading. So, what tips do you have for making that learn to read process fun and engaging for their child?
Yeah. So, the method I developed uses emotion for each letter. So it makes it, there's an animal and emotion. So for like C, you're scratching your hands like a cat and saying "K." And A, you throw your hands in the air and say um, and it breaks it down into 4 letters at a time. So they learn quickly, they can read quickly, build that confidence. Um, so my program obviously makes it really simple and easy, but even if they don't want to purchase the program or whatever, there's still a lot of things parents can do to add movement in. Um, Even if you're just, if you have a deck of flashcards and you're practicing phonics, you can add in movement like play hopscotch, have them jump on the trampoline while they're practicing their phonics. Um, jump like a frog, tap their finger, like a simple movement like tapping their finger while they're practicing their letter sounds. Even adding in those simple movements can make such a big difference. On our website, we have tons of free ideas like games, sensory activities, crafts, where the child doesn't even realize they're learning because it's fun. So maybe you're playing with Play-Doh or you're writing in sand or, all those types of things where they're moving their bodies, they're doing something fun and interesting, but they're learning at the same time. Because, no kid just wants to sit there and like shuffle through flashcards. That's boring. Um, so I'm just all about whatever you can do to make it fun and interesting. And it can be really quick. Like I'm all about teaching your child to read in like a minute a day. Like you can work on 1 letter a day, do some silly motion, do some activity like where they're moving their body or playing and they're just working on 1 letter sound a day. And I really believe adding in that movement will make a difference for the child.
That's excellent. And I really love your recommendation to keep those lessons really short.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to remind our listeners that even if you did 1 letter a day in less than a month, you would have gone through the entire alphabet.
Right.
And that isn't much time to teach the sounds, for example, the primary sounds of the entire alphabet. You are not behind if you choose a slower approach like that. So
Right.
I highly commend that to you. And I will just add that it isn't only about kids who are struggling to learn to read initially. I had an advanced child who grasped the letter sounds very, very early on. But as I was pushing to do reading, I was coming up against a lot of resistance. So I backed off and I stopped teaching reading. There was no reason for me to be pushing because he was ahead of schedule
Yeah.
with that. And what I found is that as I backed off, we would be out somewhere and he would start to read
Mm.
signs where we were because it was his idea. He wanted to do it and he wanted to lead that process. So that is another thing to consider, especially this particular child of mine had a strong will. And when they can go at their own pace, we tend to get a lot more cooperation. So,
Yeah, that's another thing about the whole being frustrated with teaching your child thing. Because learning to read is such a complex process, it really does need time. And so often we're frustrated because we're like, oh, great, they know their letter sounds. Here, read this book. But it's not,
mhm.
they're maybe not ready for that yet. And a lot of early readers are way too hard. And we push them and we like, I mean, obviously it's good to push kids sometimes, but when it comes to reading, if they're trying to read things that are too hard, that just leads to frustration again. And so I always recommend making sure your child is very confident in whatever level they're at before progressing and progressing really slowly so that they continue to enjoy it and it doesn't become something that's too hard.
100% agree. I've talked about that quite a bit, that
Mhm.
it's better to find a book that your child thinks is too easy than to give
Absolutely.
them one that is too hard. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yep.
And you can't really go by what the book says on it because every publisher publishes different standards of what level one is or level two. So you really have to like know where your child's at and look inside the book and see if they're able to read it or not.
hmm Very, very good advice. Okay, so I am really interested in knowing what resources specifically you have available on your website to help families, besides the free resources that you've already mentioned. Besides those, what are some things that you have available to listeners?
Yeah, so our curriculum has 7 levels. I've broken it down into very small chunks. Starts with uppercase letters, then lowercase, blended beginning sounds, ending sounds, long vowel sight words, and then irregular sounds. All the weird things English does. And then each level has like the main learn to read book, and then a coloring book, writing practice, an early reader. And our early readers are designed so that once they finish a level, they can read every single word in that early reader. And our books have little hints, like the animal and the action, because that's another problem. Often kids will get stuck and then they don't know what to do. And when they have that hint, it gives them that visual and kinesthetic clue. Oh, right, that was the, CH sound. Ch, ch, ch. Um, and then we also have flashcards with, and we provide tons of game ideas. And we do have curriculum books for level 1 and 2, where, again, all of our materials are designed to be super easy for parents. No prep is needed. You just pick up the book and you can immediately use it. There's a 1-page guide of how to use it because you
hmm
can also use it, to just focus on letter sounds, to read the words, whatever your child's ready for. But the whole purpose of the program is to make learning to read super easy for parents and super fun for kids.
Well, I love it. If I was trying to teach a child to read again, I would be all about it. And I'd be heading to your website, which is what?
It's ABC and then the word C, SEE, here, HEAR, and then do.com. So abcseeheredo.com.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to put that URL in the show notes for
Mm-hmm.
this episode. And then where can our listeners connect with you? I know you're on Instagram.
Yep, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X,
Yes.
TikTok, all
Okay.
the things. And our books are also available on Amazon or at your local bookstore. They can order them there. Um, so yeah, and then anyone's always welcome to message me with questions. We have guides on our website about what level to start with. But yeah, it's all about making it simple so
Wonderful.
that
And
you're not frustrated.
yes, exactly. We don't want that. And your
Right.
kids certainly don't want that.
Right.
So is your username on social, is it
Oh, yeah.
ABCC here do?
Yes. On all
Okay,
of them, it's the same. Yep.
perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This was really, I think, encouraging for parents who are frustrated with teaching their child to read. So thank you for taking the time to share with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I always do say parents can do it. I have a lot of parents that say, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't teach my child to read." But you can. You absolutely can.
To find the link to Now programs and ABC See Hear Do, visit the show notes page at homeschoolsanity.com/active reading. Have a happy homeschool week. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I hope something you heard was encouraging. If you have a personal question to follow up, don't hesitate to message me. I'm at Homeschool Sanity on social media. Be sure to check my free resource page at homeschoolsanity.com/resource and find Sanity Saving Curriculum at funtolearnbooks.com. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.